Alrighty, everyone. This is actually an interesting one. This is about the MITRE breach, and it's associated with the IVanti vulnerabilities that were announced recently. So let's get into this one. All right. So the summary of this is that there was a MITRE breach. They announced it, I think, yesterday, and it's related to two of the IVanti zero-day vulnerabilities. The sad news about this is that MITRE did their due diligence once it was announced about these zero-day vulnerabilities, but what had happened was they had already been breached. They just didn't know it. So the bad guys were already compromised, had already compromised their environment, and so what they had compromised is their system called NERV, I guess. And so this is their research virtualization environment. And NERV stands for Networked Experimentation Research Virtualization Environment. And so the bad guys were already moving around in the network. And once MITRE recognized that this attack was ongoing already, they did their due diligence. They went into incident response mode. They took their site offline. They started the investigation. They contacted authorities, and they notified affected parties. And so some of the key takeaways from some of the articles that I read is that, first of all, Lex Crompton, who has, I guess, a blog on Medium, and I believe she's associated with MITRE, writes great articles. Her article is probably the best one out there, and I think that there was a co-writer with that, Charles Clancy. Anyway, MITRE is following what they preach, which includes transparent communication and timely and quickly. When your organization patches, mitigates vulnerabilities, your job may not be over. If the bad guys are already entered, you may not know. So that's the key takeaway, is that just because your team kicked into gear when some heavy duty vulnerabilities were announced or 0 days were announced and mitigations and patches are available, doesn't mean the job is over. You have to monitor your systems and be aware that sometimes the bad guy gets in before you even know it. So the breach, some of the terms that are in the articles that I had read include breach. And so a breach is when you break into something, you've already kind of crossed that gate and you're in. In this case, the threat actors access NERV via these IVanti zero-day vulnerabilities. So what is C2? C2 is command and control infrastructure. And basically this is the process of the bad guys continuing to communicate, getting information in and out, and taking advantage of the organizations that they had compromised. So this is the way they get to the files on the compromised network. They can download, they'll install executables. This is the way they continue to impact the victim's network. In this particular incident, the threat actor installed web shell scripting to maintain what everybody calls persistence, which is to be in there and keep doing their thing. You'll notice under the TTPs, there's a comment that they exfiltrated the data via the C2 infrastructure. So what is a command injection? So this is one of the vulnerabilities. And so this was, I believe, CVE 2024-21887. So command injection is a vulnerability that allows an attacker to submit some system commands. And so in this case, CVE 2024-21887 is a command injection vulnerability in web components of IVanti Connect Secure and IVanti Policy Secure. This vulnerability, which can be exploited over the internet, allows an authenticated administrator to send specially crafted requests and execute arbitrary commands on the affected products. So CVE 2024-21887 is a command injection vulnerability in web components, kind of like what we just said of IVanti Connect Secure and IVanti Policy Secure. This vulnerability can be exploited over the internet, allows an authenticated administrator to send specially crafted requests and execute arbitrary commands on the affected product. So it's kind of a repeat what we just said on the previous slide. So what is CVE 2023-46805? This is a vulnerability found in the web component of IVanti Connect Secure and IVanti Policy Secure. This authentication bypass vulnerability allows a remote attacker to access restricted resources by bypassing control checks. So, what is an edge protection device? It's like your firewalls, your routers, and your gateways. So, what is lateral movement? Lateral movement was mentioned again. The bad guy already got in. He was moving around. The victim didn't recognize it right away, but this is when the attacker is in your network, moving around within the network. An example may be from like a server to a device to an application. So what is MFA? Multi-factor authentication. This is the process that requires more than one way of proving issue. So the simple ones are something you are, something you have, something you know. And this is from CISA. All right, so who is MITRE? MITRE is, I pulled this off their website. There's a mission-driven, MITRE's mission-driven teams are dedicated to solving problems for a safer world. So this is a really good organization. They try to do things for the greater good, including the MITRE attack site. So through their public-private partnerships and federally funded research and development centers, they work across the government and in partnership with industry and academia to tackle challenges. Again, this is a good organization that tries to help people, especially one of their best offerings, I guess, is the MITRE attack, which is free, and that's where a lot of people get what they call the TTPs. So what is NERV? So this is part of MITRE is their networked experimentation research virtualization environment. So what is RDP? So you'll notice that RDP and SSH come in a lot. So this is a technical standard. It's a protocol developed by Microsoft to help with remote access. What is session hijacking? When a session is taken over, in this case, user credentials were acquired by bypassing authentication processes. What's 0 day? So 0 day references vulnerability that may be pretty new or may not have a fix yet, but is just recently discovered, and it's time to kick into gear and take care of it. May have been unknown to vendors or owners of a product. VM stands for a virtual machine. It's a compute resource that uses software instead of physical computer to run programs and deploy apps. One or more virtual guest machines run on a physical host machine. And I got this from VMware. So VMware also is defined as the software and solutions that help convert an actual computer, server, or pool of similar hardware into several virtual machines that may be used for a variety of tasks. IVanti Secure Connect, IVanti's secure VPN solution. So this is basically their VPN option, which then if you go back to some of the comments about software versus hardware. IVanti Policy Secure, IPS, is a network access control solution, which provides network access only to authorized and secured users and devices. And then have a lot of credits for this one. And then so, again, came across some of this on Bleeping Computer, accessed the MITRE site, accessed CISA, IVanti to figure out a little bit more about their Connect Secure and their Policy Secure. I accessed Microsoft to get a little bit understanding about remote desktop protocol. Cloudflare, I've used them a couple times, but I accessed them to figure out a little bit more about lateral movement. VMware, Exabytes, also part of VMware. CISA for multi-factor authentication again, and then what is CE2. And then so that's basically everything that we did. Again, this is just a piece about MITRE Breach. The CVEs are out there. They've been out there for a short while. MITRE is a victim of this, and so just because your company has mitigated these CVEs doesn't mean that you're totally clear from any compromises or whatever. So please do your due diligence. I hope you learn a little bit from these articles that I read. Thank you. See you later. Bye. Bye-bye.